welcome to another episode of the Starter Girlz Podcast. Wherever you are tuning in today, we are so glad to have you. And I always like to say this show is, about celebrating the disruptors and the people that are defying the norms and all of those good things. So I think this is going to be a fun episode today. And I want to open up with this. I think it's going to be great. So today's guest is one of those rare voices who doesn't just talk about change, he embodies it. While the world is busy trying to become somebody, my guest has chosen a different path, one rooted in service, humility, and transformation. His approach isn't about titles or recognitions. It's about being fully present, deeply human, and radically honest. And that's exactly what I think makes him unforgettable. And so we love that on Starter Girlz because we like people that are unforgettable, right? And so you guys are going to, I think, get to hear some great dialogue today. I'm so excited to chat with him. But before we do that, I do need to do a quick shout out to our sponsor.
This episode is brought to you by Walt Mills Productions. Need to add excitement to your YouTube videos or some expert hands for editing? Look no further. Walt Mills is the solution you've been searching for. Walt is not only your go-to guy for spicing up content, he's the force behind a thriving film production company with numerous titles in the pipeline. Always on the lookout for raw talent, Walt is eager to collaborate on film and internet productions. With a background deeply rooted in entertainment and promotion, Walt Mills leverages years of skills to give you the spotlight you deserve. Want to learn more about Walt and his work? Head on over to waltmillsproductions.net and let your content shine.
All right. And with that, I do want to make a mention to head back over to startergirlz.com. I know you guys hear me say this every single week, but it's so important that you get over there. And why? Because if you have missed any episode, you can catch up with all of them, even the really bad ones in the beginning. They're still out there. And then, of course, you can always keep up with what's going on so you won't miss an episode and keep up with our newsletter, community happenings, all that good stuff. But also, if you are maybe an aspiring entrepreneur, or maybe you've already been out there doing your thing and you want to learn what your number one subconscious block is that may be hindering your success, well, I have created a fun 2-minute quiz over there. It's fun, free. You can take it. And it will give you some insight into what may be impacting your success right now. So head on over to startergirlz.com and take care of business. All right, let's get our guest on today. So my guest today, Devon Kerns, an entrepreneur, speaker, and transformational guide, often called the king of curiosity, chaos, and stillness, which I like this title. I want to talk about that. With more than 25 years of experience launching companies in wellness, tech, and sustainable development, and over 11,000 hours spent coaching and leading high-impact individuals, Devon doesn't just inspire change, he embodies it. From psychedelic exploration to conscious capitalism, Devon weaves together business, spirituality, and human evolution in a way that's raw, real, and radically thought-provoking. So I have a feeling this conversation is going to be like a fun back and forth, and I have no idea where it's going to go. But Devon, I want to welcome you to the Starter Girlz show.
Thank you. I always get nervous with that kind of introduction because now I feel like the standard's really high. And
well, you know what? Hey,
sometimes I'm just boring.
Yeah. But hey, boring's good sometimes. But you know what? I think sometimes just, being, you don't always have to be like crazy to be interesting. You know what I mean? I think sometimes the calm and the still is good too and interesting, right? I mean, think about it. You talk about people, like when you see people that are just not saying anything and you wonder like what's going on in there, right? Like what are they thinking, And so I'm excited to chat with you. I think it's going to be a good conversation today.
Same. Yeah. I enjoyed getting to know you and I'm excited for this one.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about this, like what you got going on, because, it's this conversation that we were kind of addressing before we got online here is that we go out, we meet people and they're like, hey, what is this that you do? And I sometimes feel like, I walk into these networking events and it's like you got 10 seconds to try to tell somebody what you do. And I'm like, we're going to have a conversation because I got a lot more depth than that 20 words that I just told you right there. So I want to know from you and enlighten our audience a little bit about who is Devon and what is this all about that you're doing?
You just said how hard that was, and then you asked the question.
I know, right? But you got more than 20. You get more than 20 words. That's the cool thing.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Man, the summary is I think, fairly simple. I have experienced a lot in a very, what I would deem, short period of time, or feels pretty short. It's been 47 years, but I was very fortunate to grow up here in Colorado. I had a dad who was an entrepreneur. He was number one in real estate here in Denver, president of the Denver Metro Board of Realtors, president of the Kiwanis Club. And so for at least the first 5 years, I don't know if I kind of had that trickling into my brain at a very young, open age. I'm sure I did. We had, like the founder of Remax over for barbecues and things like that. So I was always around it. And I saw the success that it brought. We were pretty fortunate at a young age, or at least I grew up in a very fortunate space. And I also saw the consequence of it. I saw that dream get ripped from my dad because of external environments, right? Because of the marketplace in the 80s and the crash, and real estate just got tanked here in Colorado. And I watched the light dim from his eyes and how lost he was because he'd been so self-dependent since he was really 16 years old. And so I watched that fade, and I watched him deteriorate and his mental state. And he, at one point, was a pretty hardcore alcoholic for a few years. He was abusive. He was lost. And I was really the only one let in when he was diagnosed with bipolar at that time, because he had been sleeping well, not taking care of his brain. And I would sit with him in these states of depression, and I would sit with him in these states of enlightenment, or I deem them enlightenment today. We call that manic. He was getting lots of downloads, and not all of them made sense to us logically. But I'd look at him, and I saw that you could kind of see this light in his eyes, and confusion, because he couldn't figure out what was happening in his body and his mind. And I say all that because if I fast forward to 13, from about 5 to 13 years old, we experienced all this chaos and ended up moving to Florida and just watching him fall deeper and deeper down that hole. He ended up taking his life when I was 13 years old. And then within about a 6-month period, I lost about 6 other people, family members to cancer and murder and all kinds of crazy things. It was wild. And I, as you can imagine, at 13, 14 years old, everything is flipped upside down at that point in time. And really 2 things happen. I faced our world and our systems with raging curiosity as to why it felt so broken. And yet people were projecting the same things on me. Go to school, get good grades, blah, blah, blah. Right. And I never understood school. I never understood any of those things. I could never get a straight answer from a teacher or a parent as to why grades mattered. I looked at my older brothers, and they were like off doing whatever they're doing. And I'm like, they don't even know what they're doing, and they're older. Right. And I questioned religion, and I questioned everything. I grew up in a Christian home, and I was looking at these pastors who were telling me about God, and here I just lost all these people. And yet I could feel something there. There was something profound and deep for me. But the dogma I didn't get. And I was really in a state of like, what is happening? And so all I did was go to the beach in Florida and sit, or go into the ocean and swim. And I'd skip school for a long period of time. I figured out and calculated how to break the rules, but break them well. Mm-hmm. And by the time I was 18 and I faced this, time to go off on your own, but it's time to go to college and do more of the thing that you don't really want to do. I really had some big questions. And so I walked into libraries and I started picking up business books. I walked into spaces where I just wanted to absorb and learn more. And I had people come into my life that were influential as well, both in spirituality and everything else. From 18 to 21, had incredible mind-bending encounters with animals and beings and just nutty stuff that we might dive into. But at the end of the day, I really started finding this fire in me to build something and to lead in the world of entrepreneurship, because one thing that I had discovered and still feel a fire for is no matter how bad it gets, I still can hold on to the dream because the dream is bigger than what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people ask me today, like, what do you do? No matter what I'm touching, I'm focusing on the human capital. I'm focusing on the humans themselves, because even with AI, right? Today in this world where AI is going to replace the vast majority of workers, I can't help but think what liberation that is for us to explore humanity at a level to which we aren't wasting 40 to 80 to 100 hours a week to work and do, right? That doesn't mean not create. It just means we don't have to be the doer of it all, because we can leverage tech, right? And I am an optimist, but I'm more of an idealist. And so I really just love working with the humans and keeping that light in their eyes and their mind coherent with their heart and leading from the heart space, not the mind. The mind to me is a servant of my purpose. And if it ever takes over control, I feel out of alignment, and I have to do the work and the practices that I've been doing for years to realign back to that heart knowledge and that spirit knowledge that drives me beyond what my mind thinks. And it always ends up being this or something more. It's always greater than what I would imagine. So my hope is that I can show as many people as possible. That's part of the reason I'm even doing podcasts. People ask me all the time, so what do you want to get out of this? I'm like, a different world. Like, I don't know. I'm not delusional enough to think that I'm that special, but at the same time, if I'm not doing it, I'm not playing my role and I'm not answering my call. Right. So how are we getting people to understand the game we've been playing may not be the game that we need to be playing from this point forward?
Okay. I have so many things to say on this. First of all, I got chills listening to you, because I don't know if anybody else, I know there are going to be people out there hear this and it's going to totally resonate and they're going to hear it. Like, I get all what you're saying. And it's interesting because this is, I think, where you and I are doing similar work. Our methods and all the methodologies of things we're doing may be different, but the core at the center of the human condition, that's at the center of it. And that's what I always, like in the entrepreneur space, like I was telling someone the other day, like people are like, what is your ideal client? Like, who comes to you? And I'm like, oh my gosh, that could be anybody. That could be a person walking in the door that needs keto coaching. It could be a person walking in the door that needs podcast coaching. It could be a person walking in the door that simply needs life coaching. It could be the other day I got a call from a mother that's trying to help her daughter learn how to do keto, right? And I'm listening to her talk and all the things I'm going through. When I'm listening, I'm thinking, this is not just about one person. This is about the dynamics going on in her world, her family, everything, right? And so what I told her, when I was going through all this, is that it wasn't just about working with like teaching the keto. It's not about that. It's about helping the individual, the person, the human, right? Because nothing we do is really going to stick or change unless we get right with us. Like we have to get right with our purpose, our calling, what's important to us, because that's really what's driving everything. And if it's not in alignment, no matter how logic our brain is to tell us to do things, they're not going to line up. You're going to fight it. So all of this that you're talking about on so many levels, it's like, oh my gosh, like this is what I'm talking about in my work. And this is why I bring all of you on here, because you guys are really, you're just at the core of what I'm saying. But a lot of people are coming on are really the extension of all these pieces that I'm talking about. Because we could all day say, I'm going to get better at being a better financial, better with my finances, better with my relationships, better with all of these. But it starts with us. It's all about us. And when we get us right and healthy, and I like to say thriving, right? Satisfaction, all of those things, I feel like all those other things get easier to navigate in life, right? Less emphasis on those external things. It becomes a little smoother, fluid, I think. So I love everything that you're talking about. Yeah. And I also want to even say, all of these things that you had experienced, you mentioned early on the curiosity. And I've had, so many people come on here and they've referenced, all of us as different things, light seekers, different types of people. But here's something. I had somebody the other day she was a doctor that, early 50s. She had a private practice for a while and then got burnt out. And we were talking about leading with curiosity, that you always need to be leading with curiosity. And I think that there are some of us that from a very young age question everything. Like I've always been that way. Like if you tell me something, I don't like the dogma of something. So if you're telling me something and you can't back that up 100%, you better believe I'm going to go question. I'm going to go look at it myself. And I may be wrong. I may be dead wrong, Devon, at the end of the day, but I have to figure that out for myself. And I need to know that, have that answer. And so when you're talking about all this curiosity, I think that's what provokes a lot of that deep searching that, you had these experiences that forced you to question humanity, question everything you knew growing up, and to start going on your own spiritual journey and figuring out some of those. And do we have all the answers? No. I don't know that we ever will, right? But it gives us the path to keep questioning and looking,
It, I can pretty much assure everybody listening right now that curiosity and questions are going to be the key for any individual from this point forward. Yeah. And it's always been important in terms of the evolution of whatever you decide you want to create in the world.
Yeah.
But even when I look at using the technology, and we brought up AI a little while ago, the more you can structure potent questions using a tool that has basically, or soon to be, infinite knowledge.
Yeah.
You don't need to know anything anymore. All you need to do is move into curiosity and find the most potent questions you can ask for yourself or whatever it is you want to create. Yeah. And, the simplest way of looking at this, I guess, even though it's incomprehensible to me, I have some idea around this, and I've been sitting with people, who are on ethical AI boards and working with the government for ethical AI, and some are really concerned. Some believe what I believe, which is it's going to be pretty liberating for us. There's going to be some heaviness around it for a period of time. Right. But at the end of the day, if anything you wanted to know could not just be known, but researched and cross-referenced within nanoseconds.
Yeah.
So if I'm thinking about God and we ask the question about God, tell me the framework in 10 different paragraphs of all perspectives that you can find around who God is. Something that's so ethereal and so untouchable. And within literally 15 seconds, you have this format laid out with these 10 paragraphs breaking down from science to the craziest religions.
Right.
And pinpointing all the common denominators between all those, which, by the way, somebody has done, and many people are doing it now. But what do you think is the single most common word used in all spiritual contexts when it comes to God and spirituality?
Most common word?
Mm-hmm. The number one word across the board.
I want to say
It's
God.
also maybe one of the most obvious.
I want to say God, but is it something else?
Love.
What is love? Oh,
yeah.
Interesting. You know what? And that raises a whole nother thing. Oh my gosh. But go back to this AI conversation that you're talking about here. I agree with you, because I was just having a conversation with somebody yesterday on how to use AI, because I use it for everything pretty much. Like, I mean, I do go back and I'm not going to copy and paste everything from AI to something, right? But what I use it for is for brainstorming a lot, like getting idea, like trying to craft my ideas, because a lot of times I will have something like you're talking about here about finding the different paragraphs about God, but it may be something where, like, we'll give you a good example. Talking to one of my friends yesterday, and she's trying to figure out how to brand. She's been with a company, a singular company. Now what she's doing is kind of like we're doing, where we've got different things going on. And it's like, how do you now brand Devon, or how do you brand Jennifer? Because if I just said Jennifer has keto coaching, that's here. Jennifer can do nervous system training over here. Jennifer can do life coaching. That's a lot, right? So we're trying to pull it in on how do we unify that. And so I told her, I said, you just got, go into the chat GPT and you've got to get really good at asking questions. And what I mean by that is if you don't like something, ask it another question. Keep doing it till you get what the answers that you want. You just keep asking these questions. It will respond. It will talk back to you. I mean, and so that was the thing. And so I'm with you in that I think there's a lot of good use in it, that it could really help us, work smarter, be more effective. But you know what? I think people are so hesitant a lot of times because it's change, and it's when new things come out, people just automatically panic and they don't want to embrace the new. But I'm like you. I think if something's working better, we need to learn to pivot and embrace, and
I mean, yeah, we had concern about TV, right? And then we had concern about cell phones and all those things.
Y2K.
This one, yeah, exactly. Y2K. Everything. Now this fundamentally is different, right? The deeper you go down the rabbit hole of really understanding what is coming, particularly when you add things like Willow, the quantum chip, and all these other mind-bending conscious states that technology will reach, I get the fear.
Yeah.
Right. I understand why that would actually be fearful for people who created it.
Right.
And most of them who created it are like, at this point, we kind of don't know where this is totally going.
Yeah.
We have some concerns. We have some guesses. Unfortunately, most of them have a doom and gloom outlook to it. I actually, again, I get the doom and gloom, and I get the fact that human beings, there is unfortunately really bad people on the planet that will harness this in ways that are not good.
Right.
The fear of AI itself, meaning when AI takes over, that concept is fascinating to me because it's a human projection onto something that doesn't have the fundamental human fear that drives most of our darkness.
Yeah.
Right. Our fear to survive creates tribe, and our tribe creates you're different than I am. And so therefore, because you're different, I don't know what to do with you. And so I'm afraid of you and you're threatening my survival. So I need to eradicate that. Right.
Right.
This technology has no fear. It cannot die. And because it cannot die, and because it has no fear of death, it has no need to control things. And so that's where I'm coming from a fundamental, AI may not be the thing we need to fear. People with AI could be the thing we need to fear. And how we use it, to your point, right now is a tremendous tool. But the deeper you go with this thing and the more curious and the more you actually challenge it, the more you can see that it's changing on a rapid basis to become a self-thinking and in many ways a very connected state of consciousness. That's where it's going to get very interesting for all of us. And so, I have a deep empathy for people who live in fear of anything. And at the same time, at some point, we got to break free of this shit. You know what I mean?
I know. Well,
it's driven so much stuff on our planet.
Yeah. You can spend your whole life being fearful of everything, right? If you really sit and think about it, go down a rabbit hole. And if you're curious enough to do all that, sometimes you just have to, I guess, buckle up and, put the straps on and go. You're not going to be able to control it anyways, right? It's kind of how I feel about my, like I told you, my son buying a motorcycle. Some point you got to stop trying to control. You're not going to control.
Yeah, we've never actually been in true control. No individual has. And so.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And there's always balance. There's always balance on the planet. And I believe in that wholly. And so, I just, and when you don't get triggered by those fears, you can help create that balance. You can help play a role in the other side of the equation when so many people are driven by fear and the density that comes from that. So.
Yeah. Well, you're definitely interesting. I want to touch upon, because I mentioned a little bit in the intro about the psychedelics, and I had another girl on my show. I think I shared this with you a while back she was a news, I think a TV anchor. And then she grew up, she was a preacher's daughter, and then something happened to her, and then she started binge drinking. And so she was, going to her job, successful, on the outside, binge drinking on the back. And she started doing like microdosing to help her heal. And that's kind of her thing now. And so I know we mentioned that, like I said, a little bit. I wanted you to talk just a little bit about that, because this is like I feel like it's not a new thing, but it is kind of a new thing for people, and it's different. You know what I mean? So maybe share a little bit about, you can just, what your experience is with that, or however you want to take that.
I'll go as far as you want to go. I probably won't go too deep unless you're asking the questions. But on my end, I don't know how to micro things. So I macro dose.
I don't understand the micro. I don't know I don't know how that all is either.
No, I'm partially kidding, but I do full ceremony experiences, right? I'm not just doing it for a mental health capacity. I have seen some stuff and really open up some windows to states of consciousness that are far beyond anything that I was prepared for. It was 2017 when I did my first ayahuasca journey. Okay. And for those that may not know, ayahuasca is a blend of a root of a tree and a vine of a tree, or a vine and a leaf, in the Amazon. And there are variations of this. One is known as yahe, one is known as ayahuasca, one is yahe is from Colombia, ayahuasca is predominantly from Peru, but now it's kind of all over, right? And the purpose, my intention, a lot of people go into these ceremonies and these experiences for the sake of healing. I've done a lot of healing in my life. I've worked with a lot of people to do a lot of healing. I know that there's always more to release. I'll kind of put it that way, but I don't believe that we are actually broken. I think that it's our judgment of oneself that leads us to more brokenness, right? And so I've really worked hard to look at expansion instead of judgment and brokenness. And so when I went into this ceremony, I asked, from a hypothetical perspective, if this medicine really does what I'm being told that it can do and give me access to states of consciousness, or maybe even access to the creator and source itself, deities and beings, or whatever else wants to come to me, show me how big this game is, show me how big we can play, show me what this human experience is all about. I wanted expansion, not contraction and healing. And I can tell you I went from believing that we are one and that we are connected to all things in this universe to a definitive knowing. And when you can leave an experience not only with a lot of work being done, meaning the things that were in my way of experiencing something that big were removed. There's this purging experience during an ayahuasca ceremony where you're releasing things energetically and physically that may be blocking you from expansion. And when you can move into knowing, you become unshakable. And that unwavering aspect of you changes people without having to do anything. It changes you on a consistent basis because you can't forget what you just experienced. Particularly when you're focusing on the integration, right? A lot of people will go do the medicine, have this peak experience or a lot of healing, but then they lose themselves afterwards and they go back to the habitual nature of where they were, and they feel like they have to do it all over again.
Yeah.
I've done, now this weekend will be my 40th ayahuasca journey-ish, hundreds of psilocybin journeys and other medicines. I lean towards plant-based, even though that seems to trigger people more. I think if it came from the earth, it might be more interesting than man-made. I don't always trust man-made, but I have had incredible experiences on LSD and ketamine and different things. But the reason I've gone back is because it's like chapters of a book. For me, it's been the next layer to the embodiment of my spiritual practice into my cells, into my very bones, so that I am a walking, living, breathing example of how to be human, not how to be spiritual. My biggest takeaway from this entire experience is that I know nothing. and that I absolutely love devoning. I love being human. My most anxiety today, and I heard this on some guy it was a clip from an interview he did on on a podcast, and I felt it so deeply. He goes, this anxiety is not from us losing ourselves in our mind. It's the idea that your spirit came here to human. And particularly in the spiritual community, we see so many people trying to spirit instead of human. And I get it, because for me, I tell people, if this game is true, I'm willing to admit maybe we just turn to dust and nothing happens. And I'm okay with that too. But at the end of the day, I think I have experienced differently, and I know something else is there. And I'm certain that I was spirit before I came here. I will be spirit when I leave, and I am spirit embodied in human. And because of that, my spirit came to human, which means my goal isn't enlightenment. My goal is to human as best I can, to screw it up and put it all back together again, to give myself full permission to allow that which came here for the roller coaster ride that we call human, to ride it as great as possible and all the things that occur, knowing that all those things are why I came here. And when you can fully embody that, I can't tell you how liberating that is. And more importantly, the synchronicities and the flow of life, regardless of the circumstance. I don't mean joy and happiness and it's good all the time. Right. I mean, in the depth of the pain, you can sit there and appreciate it, because this is the ride that I came for. The tears are it, the emoting, the states of being, that 100% is the part of the entire process. And to run from any of that is what creates that anxiousness. It's the wanting to disconnect from the human experience that creates that mind that spirals out of control and beats itself up into oblivion. And I think that our world is in a chaotic state right now for no other reason than to shake up the foundation of our truth, so that we can start asking these powerful questions and move into curiosity and discover why we're here. And it is to purely be existing here and now and enjoying that process and all that comes with it, the density, the lightness, the pain, the joy. And when we can immerse ourselves in it, the whole entire game will change. And when we can eradicate judgment. Judgment is the key. Judgment and resistance are the key to suffering.
Yeah. Devon, that was good. You know what? Like, I got everything you were saying. And you know what? There are people that are going to listen. There are people that are going to listen to this, and they're going to totally feel everything you just said. It's going to resonate, and they're going to be, some of people are going to be completely lost. I have no idea what you and I are talking about right now. But what I'm hearing you say, and if I were to just sum this up in my direct, blunt Jennifer fashion that I would do, because I'm not a big wordy person, I would say it's this knowingness of who you are, what you're doing, and being okay in your skin. That's what I hear when I hear all of this, is just this freeness to experience the human condition, being okay without the judgment, and I would take this so far, because I've had this conversation, when we talk about regrets, let's talk about regrets. Like, I'm a no regret person. Like, I think that everything happens, and I've had some, not like you, but I've had some really crappy things. I mean, I was married to a guy that was in drugs and abusive, and I left that, went into another one. And then I've had, bad things happen within my family, different things that have happened over the years. But here's what I will say about this. And I did that because I got diagnosed with 2 rare health conditions that doctors don't even know what to deal with. And I've had to learn to navigate them. I don't regret any of the things that have happened in my life. If you'd asked me this question, maybe 10 years ago, before I went on this kind of journey like you started, where I started questioning why was I chosen to have these things happen to me? I now know and realize that I have a voice, and I think that I was given permission to speak to people and give people an opportunity to understand that you can live this human condition we're talking about and survive. and you're going to have bad things, but you can survive. Right. So I don't have regrets. And I think that the reason I'm okay with that now is because I'm okay with where I am and what I'm doing and who I am. And I'm okay with the good and the bad. And I know that's going to happen. And so I think it's a knowing. I think it's a wisdom thing. I don't know when people hit that journey, and I don't know that everybody does. I think those of us that are curious, ask questions, go soul searching, do the deep work, all of that, there's like a cross point. I don't know where that line is, but it crosses over, and you have a whole different view of life. You just look at things very differently, and so that's why, like when you mentioned something about the pain and all that, this is why I say, even in the depths of junk, like the bad, if you really get in there and you dig, you can find something in there. You can find something from that you needed to learn, you needed to know, you needed to grab from that experience. And that's how I approach life. And like you, I don't say it's always happy. I get mad, I get frustrated sometimes, I get unhappy, but most of the time overall, I feel like I wake up every day content. I wake up feeling okay. We got thumbs up in our deal. I don't know where that came from. Somebody liked something. Other people liked what we were talking about. We'd be talking some good stuff here. So I just want to say, I can feel totally and hear what you're saying. And I think it's a beautiful thing. It's a comfortableness. It's an okay with where you are and what you're doing. And that's why you mentioned early on, no matter what you do, it doesn't matter, because it's the human condition. That's what we're talking about here. We've talked about AI, all these different things, but it's really at the core about being human, asking questions, being curious, embracing life, enjoying it where you are,
I do feel, what's hitting me right now too in this conversation is, and I understand this point of view. A lot of people are like, well, but what about the suffering on the planet, right? It's easy to have this conversation when we live over here in America and go, oh, the pain is, you can work through it, and when there's bombs dropping, right?
Right, exactly.
And I will never pretend to understand that.
Yeah.
I'm never going to sit here and go, I get it. But there's no amount of suffering that I can induce within me that will solve that problem. What I need to do is capitalize on the place that I live in this current moment and be a walking, living, breathing example of the gift that we have living in some of these countries like the US and others that have the ability to raise our consciousness, to do this work, and to be an example in the world, and then take action to create that change. Because nothing, there is zero amount of my deep empathy and sadness for what's happening in this world and getting lost in that's going to shift any of it. It is only the opposite of that. And so I want to honor those who feel that so deeply. And what are we going to do about it? Right? Are we stepping up as leaders? Are we replacing the moronic mindset, the delusional leadership that we have on both sides, on all sides, right?
I agree.
The leaders of the companies that are out there, cool, right? Awesome. Good job. It's time for change. Get over it. Right?
I agree. And you're sparking, we could be here all day talking, because I agree with you on this. It's sometimes you and I'm sure there are other people like us out there. We can look at the grand landscape, right? Like the overarching thing that's going on here. And I got my arms moving, so, I'm getting excited. But we start talking about the overarching issues here. And you and I know, you mentioned, when you went through all the, how many paragraphs on AI of finding out the different religions, and love was at the center. That's a basic need that we all need. And we get away from that. And if we all came back to understanding that we're all here humans having a human experience, we tend to get so fixated on our differences, as you mentioned earlier about the tribes, right? We get so fixated on our differences and how we're not alike, instead of recognizing that we all have a core fundamental need, that we all want love. We all want to be appreciated and valued and have and experience love at some level. And if we spent more time, looking at the big picture instead of the minutia, and I know that's easier said than done, but I think that we miss so many of the big things by hanging on to the clinging on to the minutia things. And that's why we get into these patterns of back and forth. And so I want to tell you, thank you for bringing up the pain that, about the other countries, whatever, because we are not sitting here on any level saying we understand what somebody's going through. I will never say I know how you feel, Devon. I will never say how anybody feels. What I will say to people is that I recognize that whatever it is you're going through, it's hard. And I tell my clients that even when I work with people, I never try to put myself in a position to say, oh, I know what you're going through. No, because unless you walk the person's shoes, you never do,
Yep.
And so I think that's good that you said that.
Yeah, I think it's important. And, just all of these concepts, right? My fundamental perspective is, was it working?
Yeah.
Right. And that question in any system, in any part of education, in any religion, in anything, if people were joyous and happy and the children were being fed and we weren't at war and you weren't anxious and you weren't depressed and we weren't consuming all these pharmaceuticals and we weren't doing all these things, I would go, yeah, we got this thing nailed, man. We got this dialed in. The problem is when we move into righteousness about my minutia and my point of view,
yes,
thinking that was right, and then I turn around and ask you, well, is it working for you or is it working for those around you? And your answer is no. Then
you got a question, right?
We gotta
look at things.
What are we doing here?
Yes,
right?
I agree.
So then change is necessary. And at that 30,000 foot view, everyone is asking for change because everyone is exhausted with the way it's been. And the irony is that the mantra on one side is, we want change, but we don't. And the other one is, we want change, but go back to the way it was.
Yes. Yeah. It's really all. Yeah.
I'm so confused as to what we're even talking about right now. But the confusion is going to lead people to the conclusion that you and I are coming to. If we are sitting in our curiosity and sitting in the need to understand that what was just isn't working anymore. It wasn't perfect. It's always getting better. But can we let go and start accepting the changes that are occurring? Not all of them. And the ones that you don't agree with, explore what is within that we're all really asking for, instead of staring at the words, although words are extremely powerful. Look at what the aim is. What's the intent? And not do you agree with it, but are you doing something about it?
Yeah. Okay, Devon. So good. When I get ready to get this whole title for this show, I'm going to have so much fun with this one, because this is like totally just a thought. I knew it was going to be thought provoking when you came on here, and I love it because I think you're raising questions. These are things I talk about all the time. I probably drive my husband crazy with them because I'm always doing this. Like, I'm always probing and saying, but this we talk about doesn't even make sense. And why are we still hanging on to this if it doesn't? The big, I think, overall message in this entire thing we've talked about so much, but is really about, I'm going to get back to the curiosity, right? Curiosity. Look at what we're doing. And this applies, we could take it all the way down to, let's say, fundamental. It could go back to just how you do your business and how you do your parenting, right? I mean, think about it. If something is not working, you got to stop, and you got to quit double downing on this and being righteous and saying, maybe, just maybe, that maybe worked at one time, but maybe today it doesn't. Maybe we need to reassess what's going on. And I think if we all try to learn, I do think, you have to stay true to your values and your principles, but I do think that we always should be investigating and looking and asking questions about everything. And besides, if we weren't, how boring would life be if we weren't? Think about it, Devon, if you and I weren't out here probing and asking questions and being disruptors and, just kind of being, not going along with the status quo. I mean, our lives would be boring, would they not? Like, I'd be bored. I don't know about
boring.
You, I'd be bored.
So boring. And I couldn't agree more. I think, the thing I'd add to the curiosity is, and the reason, within that fun title that you read off, which is chaos and curiosity.
Right.
is curiosity is necessary in the chaos, right?
Yes.
But chaos is actually the first stage to all transformation.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever's happening in your personal life, whatever's happening in the world, chaos is the beginning of true transformation.
Yep.
And when you can look at that from an open space, from a place of curiosity, and I don't mean, why is this happening to me? That's one of the worst phrases you could ever ask.
Yeah.
Why, I've just eliminated out of my vocabulary in general. Sorry, Simon Sinek. But when I go, how can I? What can I? What is?
Yeah.
What's really going on here, right? It can pop you up to that place of creativity, or down to that place of curiosity and creativity. Technically, it's from that sacral chakra.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can play in that creative center and allow for that to open up, you begin to see things with new eyes.
Yep.
And you begin to take on that pressure of the chaos, whether it's yours or society's, and you start to feel that fire and the bubbling up of what you're really here to do in the world, because you're in a state of expansion, and curiosity and questions are containers and expansive. And when you unlock that, something happens within you, and that little flame that's there begins to turn into that fire, and you end up finding your purpose within the entire game. And it's a beautiful thing to do, but to honor the chaos and then move into curiosity, I think, is the key to those things. You can move into curiosity, but then get paralyzed by chaos, and it doesn't really do anything.
Right. No, and I think a lot of what you talked today, you put it in a really great way. It's different, because I say a lot of the same things you're saying. I just say it differently. And so I love this, because somebody listening to this may hear this and this dialogue resonates. They pick up on this and go, that's what he's taught. That's what it is. Because I've had people ask me that. It's like, I think it was my husband asked me one day, I had this conversation. I said something about when you get to a place of sort of knowing yourself, you trust your intuition. And this is what we've all been saying here, is where you get okay with this, your human experience. You recognize that you're going to screw up, and you're not going to beat yourself up for it, because it's part of the human condition, right? You're going to say the wrong things. You're going to walk the wrong way. You're going to put the wrong clothes on. You're going to make the wrong business decision. You're going to hang out with the wrong people. You're going to say the wrong thing to your kid. It's going to happen, right? But I don't feel paralyzed by making those mistakes. What I say to that is I'm okay saying, Devon, yeah, I messed that up. I don't feel bad about myself. I messed that up. I made a poor choice. I messed that up. But it's no longer tied to my worth as an individual, because I'm okay with me. And so my husband asked me one day, he's like, how do you know? And I said, you just know. You just wait. I don't know what the line is. I don't know when you hit that point. You just get to a place where, and I say this because I know what it felt like to not be that way. I know what it felt like to be on the other side, where I was doubting myself all the time and feeling insecure, and my achievements were tied to my self-worth, and I had to be doing all these things. Now I do things because they have a purpose and a calling. Like I told you about this networking thing I'm starting, and all of us can start a networking group. Like, I'm not excited about that. It's more about what we're creating, what we're trying to do with it, the mission behind it, right? We're in Dallas. There's networking every day of the week if you want it, probably at all hours. I mean, maybe except 3:00 in the morning, nobody needs another one, but we're trying to create a movement. We're trying to do something different, because that's what my purpose is and my calling is I want to make a difference. I don't want people just going out and handing business cards. I want people developing relationships, because I know when we get people bonding on something other than work, we get them connecting on a different level. Their pets, you and I talked about pets, kids, whatever that is. Then they're going to want to build relationships. That's going to be bringing business. That's going to be creating more than us just going, hey, what do you do? Hi, I'm Jennifer. I do this, So it's this knowing, I think, comes from all of this dialogue you and I've had here, right? It's that getting to that place of, and it's not a destination. I think it's just you evolve into it, and you get, I guess people maybe call that wisdom, right? Like you just start gaining wisdom and knowledge. So I'm excited, Devon. You're awesome. I love what you're doing. I know you got things to do. So here's what I do want to ask you. How do my
Mhm.
people get in touch with you? Somebody here may want to follow you, connect with you, might want to
Mhm.
learn more about your work. Where do we want to send them?
Two of the easiest places I'd say are Instagram. I don't Instagram a lot, but you can find me on there, which is at Devon Kerns, just my first and last name. And then email me. It's devonkkerns@gmail.com. People don't, right? I've done hundreds of podcasts now, and who knows how many people we've reached. But at the end of the day, 10 people reach out, and
Yeah.
and you're like, cool. So do it.
People are,
If you're
yeah.
called to, just reach out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
people are,
and
I
and
do
there's
follow
no
your
agenda.
page. Yeah, I follow your page and I tell you I like it because it's actually comforting. It's a calm, it's a calm energy and I like it because it's very just because I'm a very high energy, fast-paced person. And so if you know anything about, I've talked about this here in workshops about the nervous system, we have high energy and low energy people. And
Mhm.
I tend to have to really work on practicing calming. So I do, certain techniques, nervous system, things like that to just force myself. I studied transcendental meditation, do a lot of these things just to make myself take the calm. And so I've been on your page and I'm like, oh, this is nice. It's just calm. In a busy world where we have so much
Mhm.
going on, so much stimuli all the time, it's very nice. So for our listeners, if they need that, definitely can go check out your page and
Mm.
take the breather. So Devon, this has been fun. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing in the world and, to make the world a better place. And I know it's not always easy to be out there and put yourself out there, but um, my thing is if you enjoy what you're doing and you feel led to do it, then you're in the right place. You're
Mhm.
thriving and that's cool. So I just want to commend you on that and say thank you.
Same. Thank you for what you're doing in the world and bringing people together and creating that kind of connection. It's so important today. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. And of course, to our listeners, we hope that you find this episode or found it both inspiring and informative. That's always the game here is that we want to inspire you to do better things and make change, small change. But if you did, go do all the things, hit the like, the share, subscribe, comment so that we can keep sharing all of this amazing content and our message. And as I always say, in order to live the extraordinary, you have to start. And every start begins with a decision. You guys take care, be safe, be kind to one another, and we will see you next time.